please call the roll.
Case,
Aye. Here. Aye.
Jadish.
Here.
Evans. Here. Kasserag.
Here.
Leidig. Here. Mead.
Here.
Slivka.
Here.
Stevenson. Stacking.
Here.
Give a quorum.
Thank you. Next item is approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second. Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next item is the approval of the minutes of the April 25th, 2019 meeting.
Move to approve. Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we'll get on to the public hearing items. We have two this evening. We'll start with the first one. A is the Fabyan Crossing Oberweis Outlot. The applicant is requesting two items. The first one is the amendment to the Fabyan Crossing Plan Unit Development Ordinances 1993-45 and 2017-10 and 2018-16 and the resolution 2018-01 to modify the list of permitted uses, sign regulations, parking requirements, and previously approved landscape plan, all related and proposed development of a sit-down drive-through restaurant on a new outlot on Lot 1. And the second item is final plan unit development plan approval for a new outlot on Lot 1. The location is 2100 South Randall Road, and the applicant is Oberweis Dairy. I will read the procedures we will follow this evening for the public hearing, and then we'll proceed. We now enter the public hearing portion of our meeting. It is the Plans Commission job to conduct these public hearings in order to receive testimony for and against petitions for the general amendments to the zoning ordinance, zoning map amendments, zoning text amendments, and special use permits, and amendments to special use permits. The procedure we will follow for this is as follows. First, the Plan Commission and Secretary or designated representative will read and describe written items, reports, and plans into the record. Second, the petitioner will present testimony in favor of the petition and will present any supporting plans or exhibits. Third, the commission members will have an opportunity to question the petitioner. Fourth, the commission will then receive citizen testimony both for and against the petition, and questions about the proposal may be directed to the petitioner or petitioner's witnesses, and questions about the Plan Commission's process itself may be directed to me. Following such testimony, the petitioner and Plan Commission may ask questions for those who testify. Finally, the petitioner may provide a rebuttal to any testimony in opposition. When all the testimony is brought into the record, the hearing will be closed and the Plan Commission will make a recommendation to City Council in the form of motions or motions. In order to give testimony, you must provide your name and address on the registration sheet located at the entrance when you walk into the hearing room, and sign in the space provided. By signing the registration sheet, you agree and understand that anything you say will be considered sworn testimony and affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. When giving your testimony, please approach the lectern, speak directly into the microphone so you may be heard. Please begin by stating your name and giving your address. If you speak additional times, please state your name each time for the record. Please be concise when presenting your testimony, and if your point has already been made, it is not necessary to repeat it. Each of these points is recorded and will be considered as the Plan Commission develops findings of fact and recommendation or recommendations. You may provide written testimony, and such written testimony must be presented to the Plan Commission Secretary or designated representative prior to the closing of the hearing. After the process is completed and everyone wishing to present testimony has spoken, the Commission will then decide whether there's adequate testimony in order to make a decision. If it has, the public hearing will be closed. After the public hearing is closed, the Plan Commission will refrain from receiving any additional testimony either for or against the petition. There is one exception to this rule. City staff will submit a report based on the testimony presented at the hearing. This report will consider comments from all the city departments such as the Fire Department, Public Works Department, or Engineering Department. Are there any questions? Okay, at this time I will administer the oath to those who have signed the registration form. Anyone wishing to give sworn testimony, ask questions, or cross-examine anyone giving sworn testimony please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you very much. Please be seated. All right, Paul, we have items for the record.
All right. The contents of our Plan Commission file for the Oberweis Outlot case is a project narrative submitted by the applicant dated March 19, 2019. Preliminary engineering plans, site plan, stacking plans, truck turning exhibits, stormwater memo prepared by H.R. Green, last revision date April 26, 2019. Landscape plan prepared by H.R. Green dated April 26, 2019. Freestanding signage plan by facade signage plan by Direct Sign Systems dated March 14, 2019. Architectural elevations and screening prepared by DXU Architects dated April 29, 2019. Floor plan prepared by DXU Architects dated March 20th, 2019. Revised parking study prepared by H.R. Green Incorporated dated April 26, 2019. A photometric plan prepared by CREE dated March 20th, 2019. A memorandum and staff report from the Community Development Department to the Plan Commission, which summarizes the request and provides staff's analysis dated May 9, 2019, revised to add addendum number 1 on May 7, 2019. A certificate of publication from the Daily Herald for a legal notice that was published on April 22nd, 2019 for tonight's public hearing, and a copy of the notification letter and sworn affidavit stating that said notification letter was mailed to all property owners within 500 feet of the subject property.
Thank you very much. We'll hear from the applicant at this time.
Good evening. James Blaylock with the Oberweis Group, 951 Ice Cream Drive, North Aurora. Here just on behalf of representing the Oberweis Group for our application.
Okay. All right. Do you want to give a presentation, or do you want to talk about it?
I have the civil engineer who can give the presentation.
Okay. Very well.
Good evening, I'm Todd Richards with H.R. Green, 420 Front Street, McHenry, Illinois. Like to go through the site plan, parking study, landscaping plan, signage, things like that. To start off, so the proposed project's located on, we're just going to leave the site plan up for right now. So the proposed project's going to be at the southeast corner of Lot 1 within Fabyan Crossing. Oberweis is planning to carve out roughly 1.2 acres out of Lot 1 for their development. So the entire Oberweis parcel will be east of the internal access drive, and we will not be affecting the alignment of that access drive. Regarding the parking, so H.R. Green, we prepared a parking analysis of the Oberweis in conjunction with the at-home. And so got some numbers here, so I got to continue to read my notes here so I get it right. So currently there's 469 stalls within Lot 1, and the Oberweis development will make a net reduction of roughly of 89 stalls, leaving 380 stalls within the overall Lot 1. This gives us an approximate parking ratio of 3.49 per 1,000 square feet. The Oberweis plan, we have 66 stalls within the Oberweis parcel itself, 4 of which are designated as drive-through waiting stalls. The at-home has actually agreed to share 34 stalls with the Oberweis development, and those stalls are located north of the Oberweis parcel itself. The city code states that there needs to be 15 stalls per 1,000 square feet for the Oberweis development, plus 1 additional for each drive-through employee. This equates to 66 stalls, which we do have on site. However, the dine-in customer stalls only would be 62. This will come into play here when I go through the rest of the numbers. The at-home store, per the city code, has a requirement of 4 stalls per 1,000 square feet. And we took a look at the ITE manual to see what that generates, and they show a parking ratio of roughly 1.85. In our parking study, we took kind of the average with 3 stalls per 1,000. So we ran that through based off of the 3 stalls per 1,000 for the at-home, 62 stalls available for the Oberweis, but based off of a total need of 66, even though the IT manual says that they don't have the same ratio. Based off all that, in the peak demand for the Oberweis, and that's the single peak hour, there is a net deficit of 4 stalls. The peak for the Oberweis is not the same as the peak for the at-home, so there are still 34 available stalls in the shared stall area. So at no point in time do both peaks occur for the at-home and for the Oberweis. Let's see. So also, we took a look at the existing Oberweis with the 3 dining option concept down in Bolingbrook, just to get an idea as to what type of parking utilization they see. We were out there on 2 separate Saturdays, and the peak hour that we found was 26 stalls were utilized. I think there were 50-some stalls in there, and again, so their peak utilization was 26, considerably less than the 66 required by code. Let's see, where was I? So, sorry. And then also we took a look at the at-home store. So we came out on a Saturday just to see what the parking utilization is for at home. And what we found was that the parking east of the internal access drive was pretty much vacant. There was maybe 1 or 2 cars parked there for whatever reason. Then the bulk of the parking, while the rest of the parking west of the internal access drive, there were still stalls available within that parking field. So per our studies, the data that we've crunched, our observations, we believe that there is ample parking for both the Oberweis and the at-home store together within the overall Lot 1. Onto the building and site signage, as you've noticed, there is no freestanding monument sign. In lieu of that, Oberweis is requesting to amend the PUD to allow the additional facade signage. There's 320 square feet of signage on the building, and again, because there's 3 separate dining options within the restaurant, they have 3 separate signs. And the 3 separate signs are shown on the east, the west, then there's 1 sign on the north, and then 1 sign on the south. This allows them to fully utilize their corner lot, if you will, on Fabyan and Randall, giving them good visibility for the traveling public and to let the public know what options are available to them. Onto landscaping. I'm going to see if I can pull up the landscape plan real quick. Let's see what we got. Bear with me. All right. So the landscape plan, we worked with the city staff extensively to go through what was required, the changes that were made in 2017 that was part of the PUD ordinance that was read in before. The Crown group came in and they basically took down the majority of the trees. And again, that was to open up the view corridors from Fabyan and also from Randall Road. And in lieu of the trees that they took down, they ended up with shrubs, ornamental grasses, low-growing vegetation. The plan you see in front of you here, it's attractively landscaped, and we have ornamental trees, deciduous and evergreen shrubs, perennials, and also ornamental grasses. Again, keeping in consistency with the 2017 PUD amendment of maintaining that view corridor into the subdivision itself. So that's another one of the things that Oberweis is requesting as well, to amend the PUD to allow the landscaping plan as you see it here. Onto the site itself, again, southeast corner of Lot 1. The access to the site is at the west side, south and west side, and that is access to the internal access drive. The Oberweis parcel will not have access to Fabyan or to Randall Road. The building is roughly 4,260 or 56 square feet with the dine-in parking located along the south and east sides. The 4 drive-through waiting stalls are located along the west side. The drive-through pickup window is also located on the west side, which helps to screen it from Randall Road. So The drive-through itself has stacking available for roughly 10.
Can I interrupt? Do you
Yeah.
mind using the mouse and pointing it to some of the things as you're talking about them?
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
There should be a mouse on the.
Right at your right hand.
All right.
It just might make it clear for us.
All right, so access is located here at the southwest corner of the proposed lot. The drive-through pickup window is roughly here, and those 4 drive-through waiting stalls are located here.
Okay.
Is that,
Yeah.
is that what I was missing? I'm
No, I
sorry.
I wasn't keeping up with you with just words. This is very helpful.
I ran through it pretty
So
quick, too.
my question is it drive-through for all 3 restaurants or just 1 or 2?
So it's kind of unique. The drive-through, if you order at the order board, it's only for ice cream. But apparently, from what I've been told, you can actually order through Wood Grain or that burger joint or Oberweis. You can call it in and then pick it up through the drive-through. But you can't, they're not taking orders for Wood Grain or that burger joint at the order board itself.
Huh?
People get confused
I'm
about that at
confused.
Bolingbrook site?
How does that work?
I'm just saying is that, you
I-
show up, they expect to have, I'm just.
I'm gonna have to ask
It's your
James on
business,
that
but
one.
I'm just saying that to me, that would be confusing, like I'd grow up and then I'm like, I can't order a burger. And then I wind up sitting in the drive-through waiting to get out because I can't order something.
James Waylock. It's the pizza and that burger joint. Those menu options will not be on the drive-through. It'll just be for pickup with call-in orders ahead. Those are longer items, so we don't want to stack on a heavy delay.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
All right.
I just didn't know how that was gonna work.
Yeah, so it's for the ice cream. You know,
For the
that's
ice
main-
cream.
That's the main focal point, or call ahead orders. They come
Okay.
in.
So
Again.
if I wanted to call ahead and get a pizza, I could pick it up there?
Correct.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so then services for, well, let's go back to the engineering plan. If I can find it. Shoot. What did I do? Bear with me. So the water and the sanitary sewer services all come from the west, and so the sanitary sewer will connect to the existing sanitary main that's within the at-home parking lot that gets extended east. It then gets split once it reaches the Oberweis parcel. There's one line.
Where did the current pond, the retention pond go? Are you building into that, or is that in your site, or
That's,
no?
that's further north.
That's further north?
Correct.
So that's not part of your site?
No,
Okay.
no. I'll touch on the stormwater.
I figured that's where we were, sorry.
Oh, so the sanitary, so that gets split. You have one line for the kitchen waste and then another one for the restrooms. There is a grease interceptor external to the building, which the kitchen waste flows through, and then it connects into the, we'll call it the main service for the Oberweis. The water main also connects to the east to the existing water main. We're bringing across an 8-inch water main that connects into the proposed fire hydrant at the southwest corner of the Oberweis. And then from there, a 6-inch line water main or water service is brought into the building itself. From there, the services are split, one for fire and one for domestic. The stormwater now. So the site generally slopes from west to east. Let's see, we got, go to the grading plan here. There is an existing catch basin located kind of in the southwest corner of the lot.
Can you zoom that up a little bit?
I will do my best here. Bear with me. Yep,
Yeah, it's a little better.
is that, so we'll start. So in the existing condition, the site generally slopes from west to east. The stormwater then basically follows that, flows to the east curb line, and then gets routed through a couple of curb cuts to the existing swale. Bear with me. So you got curb cuts here and here in the existing condition, those are going to remain. And then the stormwater then flows to this existing swale. That swale then flows to the north underneath the access drive that comes off of Randall Road, and then continues north to the existing detention basin.
Okay.
So what we did is we tried to keep a similar drainage pattern to this existing catch basin so as not to over inundate it. We actually reduced the area to that. The proposed Oberweis development itself is actually reducing the amount of impervious area. Currently, it's all parking lot except for some curb islands. That's really about it.
Right.
Sorry.
No, I was good.
Okay, so we're reducing it by roughly 4,700 square feet. So in essence, there will be a slight reduction in stormwater runoff coming from the Oberweis parcel in the proposed condition. And with that, James, you have anything else? No? I'll open it up to questions.
Yep.
Could you go through in some detail how the drive-through would work? I'm having a hard time with your drawings, actually tracing the way it will flow in and out and how those waiting spaces work and all that. Could you
Okay,
clarify all that a
Let me
bit on one
see.
of your drawings?
see what I can find here. Maybe.
Try page 47. I think shows it pretty good.
Thank you. Whoop, come on. What is? There we go. So, yeah. Paul, do you know where the stacking exhibit was at? Was that on a
I
separate?
think it's right, go to photometrics. And then,
This guy?
yeah, and then go up from there. I think you didn't, oh, good. You didn't
Oh,
click on the
sorry.
photometric.
I'm with you.
Just click, yeah,
Down here, this guy?
now go up from that.
All right.
Up a couple more.
I'm with you. All right. So, here is whoa, too much, sorry. So this is the plan itself. So again, the pickup window is located kind of at the south side of the building. And then you have the stack, so you can see how the cars roll up through here. And there's roughly 10 to 11 spots for vehicles in the queue. So the routing overall is they would enter through here, through the southwest axis, route up and through, and then turn out to the west and then down and around.
Is there an exit to the north into the shared parking that way, or is that?
Not
is that
necessarily.
occur-
We have it routed, so we've got, see if I can get this to work right. So we've got it striped off so that this is for the drive-through. Now, that doesn't mean that somebody can't just run through here if they wanted to, but it's striped off and also signed. So, and then also if somebody decides that they're in line and they don't need to be, they could cautiously get out of line, if you will. But
There's
there is
another access point on that, yeah.
There, okay, to the left, to the west? Yeah, okay, sure.
So if I came into your parking lot and the spaces in front were full, if I understood your parking plan, I come in, that's all full down there when I come in, I turn the corner,
come up like this.
full. The next place I'm gonna wanna go is to the north to those spaces.
Yeah.
So I gotta cut across that kind of artificial boundary there.
That or you would end up coming back down south, out to the west and back out to the main access drive. Otherwise, yeah, I suppose people could,
People are gonna go straight up there, I think, if there's not a wall or something to keep them from going straight up there.
yeah, and we didn't want to completely curb off that line either on that north side.
Don't you have a sign posted at that location, that striped area?
Yeah, it's a,
So, I mean, there's a sign sitting there. Nobody's gonna be able to drive through that.
yeah, I mean, you could come like out and around and sneak
Yeah, you
through.
have to go through.
Yeah, it's like,
The sign wouldn't be in the striped area. I think that's just a note. That sign is on
Yeah,
that.
you got a bollard mounted sign.
I'd be sneaking.
yeah.
What is
I
on
would
that
not, I
sign?
would not
Yeah,
drive
I
all the way
just
back
think- Or
around.
you just
I'd
decide
say
to go out
screw it.
that way rather than go out the main drive
I
and get
wouldn't
out.
bother. I'd sneak.
No, I wouldn't go all the way back.
6A.
I'd just sneak.
So do not enter is facing
Yeah.
north and west, if you will. So if people are driving this way, they're not going to try and sneak in that way.
Then if they do go
And
back
then-
out the way you're hoping they will and park up there, then they walk across your stacking area.
They would go through there. It's actually one of the safer areas because everybody is basically stopped in more of a stop condition.
And those spaces to the top or to the north, those are the shared spaces
Those are the ones you're
at
counting
home?
on as, counting
Right.
as shared spaces, right?
Right.
Correct, those are the 34.
So you're making those, you're asking us to consider those as official parking for your restaurant in order to meet the requirements. So
So you better not wall it off.
they need to be ones that people will naturally go to park.
Yeah, well, we would assume that they would go here first rather than going across that internal north-south access drive. And then again, we have the sidewalk ramp here as well to get up to the patio.
Go ahead, Fred.
When you were talking about the Bolingbrook store, did you mention that the peak load for Bolingbrook was 26?
Correct. That was the peak number of stalls that were utilized at any one time, was 26.
So is Bolingbrook typical 3
Correct. It has the same three dining options,
configuration?
just like this.
Okay.
Yep,
And your seating capacity is what inside?
great question. I did not ask what the seating capacity is.
I mean, you had a diagram, but I didn't count the seats.
Oh, you're talking about this one?
Yeah, not in Bolingbrook, this one. I
Oh,
don't.
sorry, I got caught over on
About this one.
Bolingbrook. Got caught over on Bolingbrook. Let me see if I can find that real quick here. Paul?
I mean, there was
Floor
a
plan.
seating diagram, I just didn't count the
Yeah, I didn't count it
seats that were
Yeah, let's see.
inside.
So we've got the floor plan. I apologize, I don't have the,
I'm just trying to think of the number of available seats, and
So here
then
we go.
there's outdoor seating, and like,
93
who could
seats.
potentially stay there for like an hour, duration at peak,
I suppose.
yeah.
So, yeah, so we've got 93 indoor seats and then 20 outdoor seating.
Okay.
Of all the restaurants?
That to be honest, that I don't know. I think there are different variations.
93 plus 20 something is 100, it's over
113.
60, potentially over 60 vehicles.
It's-
It's not going to happen.
No.
Feels a lot like the drive-through at Portillo's,
It reminds me of the drive-through at Portillo's, which
Yeah.
is a pain.
which is really bad.
It's a terrible parking lot, and this one looks very much like it. And you get in there, and if it's full, there's no spaces, which happens, then you're not sure where to go for overflow parking, and the drive-through line is endless.
Well, and again,
I know
for
you have,
this,
you have a lesser drive-up menu, which will help keep that line shorter. I just feel like people are
Correct.
gonna wanna drive right up to those spaces to the north.
yeah, I mean, if you're, again, we've got 62 available dine-in stalls, and the peak per the city code was showing 66. That's the parking ratio. The ITE manual shows, I think, 9.98 per thousand versus the 15 per thousand in the city code. So again, we believe that the city code might be a little heavy on the
Including the ones
requirement.
to the north.
No,
It's not.
no, it is not. No, if you included the ones to the north, it'd be 66 plus the 34 for
Okay.
100.
I feel better about that.
Plus, in general,
Yeah.
the employees, usually you try to make them
Right.
park there too, that
Right,
frees up more
right.
space too.
Right, and we generally have a sea of parking everywhere, which I'd rather see more filled in, so I'm not advocating for creating more parking, just want it to be accessible.
One thing to keep in mind, I think that it will be highly skewed towards ice cream users in the drive-through. Unless the pizza's really good, but to order, I think most of the people that go through the drive-throughs will be ice cream purchasers. The folks that are going for a pizza probably walk in and pick up. I mean, the timing, you're ordering a pizza or a hamburger and then getting there exactly when it's ready at the window.
Yeah, that's
I think you
awkward.
park in front, and maybe there's a short-term spot or something where if you're doing pickup, are you gonna have
Well-
any spots for?
Yeah, and
people to
that
walk
was
in?
the 4 drive-through waiting stalls that were to the west. Let me get back
But
to.
if I just am ordering a pizza, but I'm gonna walk in and pick it up, I'm assuming I have that option, right?
Yeah, I would,
So
that's,
so I would just park in front of the door, as close to the door, and walk in.
Yeah.
Like I do in most places I buy a pizza, right?
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
So I think it should be, an ice cream's pretty quick. You get, the longest thing is gonna be making it shake, probably. But
Yeah, and I don't know how many people really do drive-through ice
Right.
cream anyway. I think people go inside for that too.
If you look at Dairy Queen, it's.
Have you seen
there's
Dairy
probably-
Queen?
Dairy Queen will have, 8 or 10,
Ooh, boy.
after the baseball game's out or something, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, again, we're talking about time periods that are infrequent. There will be a full stacking load, at peak times of, after, baseball team goes or something. But I think it's going to be rare that it will be that much conflict.
Yeah, go ahead, Cindy.
Is this 93 indoor seating for the pizza place, the burger place, and the ice cream place, or just
Correct.
the ice cream?
No, it's for everybody. So it's one restaurant with 3 different dining options, basically. So and they actually have 3 different decors inside of it, allegedly. From my understanding, I'll be honest, I haven't seen the inside renderings of what the building looks like inside, just the outside. So yeah, it's for everybody though. It's not just for one or the other uses.
Okay. And what is the peak time? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, go ahead.
And what is the peak time
For parking, for,
for the restaurant stuff? What are you saying is the peak time?
I'm gonna have to take a look at the
I think it
parking
was 12
study.
to 2, I think
It's-
was one of the peak periods that had that 25 or 26.
Yeah, let me take a look. Oh, so yeah, for Bolingbrook, it was, let's see, that was actually later in the evening. That showed up at 6 o'clock. Then during the afternoon, we're seeing a peak of around 24, and that's 1:45, 2 o'clock.
These were Saturdays, right?
These were Saturdays, yes.
Brad?
Yeah, I was just wondering, that's right. Is there studies about the stacking and the weighting and things like that from other stores? Or are we just kind of guessing on the stacking?
Well, we have, so based off of our drawings, we've got roughly 10 to 11 spots for stacking, depending on the vehicle size. Talking to Oberweis, the peak hour for drive-through usage is roughly, they say 20 vehicles in a peak hour. So,
There could be 20 vehicles. Because what I'm also
Okay.
picturing too is this backup beyond the 10. Now we're down on the
yeah, it'll,
east side.
yep,
People are parked, the parking's on both sides where there's 11s in the triangle.
yep.
Those people are trying to get out while there's a backup. I don't know if you guys are following that.
I follow where you're going. And again, so the 20 would be like at the peak hour. So you've got 10 stalls. They turn their products out in roughly 3 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. So
No, we don't generally
You know,
drive for theirs.
even if you stacked up
But just
20
trying to go
20 vehicles, they would all have to show up all at one time instantaneously to really create that
I
backup.
think so too.
I don't know that they would see a whole lot of backup with that, again, that 20 cars in an hour. Typically, it's around the 10 to 16. And obviously, things are different, if some baseball game lets out and everybody decides to drive through, that's a unique circumstance, but in general, it's 20 in an hour.
Okay.
Michael?
Actually, I had a similar question, but also, this is a relatively new concept.
Yes.
So the statistics of the study, how long have the stores been open that the data's being based on?
So the Bolingbrook store, I want to say it's been open for, I think, 3 or 4 years, 3 years. So it's an established store. It's not brand new, so we didn't get the honeymoon period, and it's not been open for, decades where they're starting to lose their peak.
Thanks.
Anything else? I just had one thing. For your trash area, that wall, I'm sure there's a wall is at least 4 feet high, maybe even higher, for your trash, hiding your trash location. And you're pulling out into that is gonna be busy coming in and out, and people getting in and out of your restaurant and stuff. Is there enough view shed to go north to seek oncoming traffic through that drive coming down?
Oh, you're saying from here?
Yeah, if you're sitting there waiting
Gotcha.
to pull out.
I'm with you.
is there enough? I mean, it's pretty tight.
Let's
And
see.
the intersection is gonna be busy, there's gonna be people coming in and out, lots of turning movements, and you're gonna try to make a snap decision to get out. And you might not have
Yeah,
enough vision northbound to see the car coming.
Most of them are gonna go on the inside, though, to pick up the pickup window, I think's on the inside, isn't it?
I think he's talking about exiting the site
Exiting the
itself.
site.
Oh.
Yeah,
So
it's
coming out
there,
here and then
yeah.
looking north, how far can you go?
Yeah, it's just a little tight, because that's just a solid wall, I'm assuming. You're shielding the trash area. You're not gonna see through it.
Right, probably 8-foot tall fence or something, right?
So the visibility window is roughly up to this island here. Again, being the internal access drive, the speed limits should be
Yeah.
a little bit slower, and I realize that,
I know, just-
people do kind of whatever they want, but, and again, this is a stop condition down here as well.
Do you have the geometry a little bit further down to like towards Fabyan? Yeah. No,
Hey, Scott,
yeah.
I have a feeling that when people leave the spot or the restaurant and they pull out into that access road, probably, I would imagine that probably a large majority are going to turn right, because if you turn left, you can only go west on Fabian.
Yeah, you can only.
And then you'd have to go down to the Walmart
That'll
or
help.
tunnel around behind that access road behind
That'll help a lot.
at home. Yeah,
So you can't go through,
yeah.
Yeah, it's just a little tight there, with just the sight lines, and if people are coming through and in and out and turning movements,
Right.
you don't have a lot of time.
It's
I
to
mean,
call.
would it make sense to make that a right turn only when you exit?
I just don't know if there's enough traffic total.
Total in the site, yeah.
That would matter, enough
Yeah.
people wanting to go, if you have 2 or 3 people wanting to turn left or whatever in an hour compared to,
Yeah, it's not gonna
the other 17 wanting to go north. I mean,
And if you have people leaving the establishment and turning right, and you're gonna go down to Glen Eagle, that's a very, very busy intersection right there by the McDonald's. So that's gonna add to the traffic flow there too.
that's a light there, is it?
There's the light at Glen Eagle and Randall.
Yeah,
But
that's
there's coming in off of Randall, it's no stopping, but the other 3 intersections are stop signs.
Right.
Yeah.
We do have the right in, right out on Randall, that if somebody's gonna go east or south, they'll turn right and go to that first intersection.
Yeah, it's
Right,
gonna
go to
route
Glen
them
Eagle.
out.
The one that, there's a right in, right
Oh,
out.
yes, yeah.
South of McDonald's. right,
Yes.
South of the retention.
Correct,
So unless somebody's truly going north.
right.
Yeah.
They will
Okay, that
likely
makes me
avoid
feel
it.
better. Okay.
I forgot about that.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, we'll take public comment. Sheet or no?
I think it's just,
Is there someone wishing to speak on this item? Yes, ma'am, go ahead. I don't think there's a whole lot, so we'll just take you first, and rather than, usually you do it by pecking order, but I don't think.
I
there's
think
a
I
lot.
was the first anyway,
Okay.
so I think we're good. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jody Henninger. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Kling & Calloway McLean in Lisle, Illinois. I'm here to speak on a very complex situation involving this Oberweis development. I'm going to try to keep my comments as simple and concise and to the point as possible. I represent the owner of Lot 4 in Fabyan Crossing Shopping Center by the name of Bear Valley Partners. Bear Valley purchased the land in December 2006 from Dial Realty Geneva LLC. Bear Valley owns the land upon which the McDonald's sits, and the land is leased to McDonald's pursuant to a ground lease dated October 20th, 1994, which was originally entered into between Dial Realty as landlord and McDonald's as tenant. So that predated my client's involvement. It's important to note that this is a ground lease only, so only a lease of the land and not the building, and thus Bear Valley does not own or operate the McDonald's that sits there. I am here tonight to oppose the proposed Oberweis development on behalf of my client. There are numerous reasons why we dispute this proposed development, which I will discuss tonight. The first and foremost reason, however, is that this proposed development will most certainly diminish the value of my client's property. The reason why this is certain is because the ground lease, under which my client is now the landlord, contains a provision that states that the landlord covenants and agrees that no property within the Fabyan Crossing Shopping Center shall, during the term of the lease and any extension, be leased, used, or occupied as a restaurant, food service establishment, drive-in, or walk-up eating facility. If this covenant is broken, 1/2 of all of the payments required to be made by the tenant to Bear Valley as landlord under the lease shall be abated for so long as the breach continues. One of the standards for your granting of a special use is that the proposed building or use will not diminish the value of adjacent and nearby properties. My client has been put on notice by outside counsel for McDonald's that McDonald's intends to exercise this remedy should the Oberweis restaurant open on this proposed outlot. Submitted herewith, I can give you both the relevant portions of the ground lease and the letter from the counsel from McDonald's informing my client of their position. The amount that McDonald's is claiming it will be entitled to abate is very substantial. The lease currently runs through July 24th, 2020. However, the lease may be extended at the tenant's option for 3 more terms of 5 years each, making the ultimate termination date on or about July 24th, 2035. Presently, McDonald's is paying $5,833 per month in rent, plus the tenant is responsible under the ground lease for payment of taxes of approximately $31,000 annually and any common area maintenance charges assessed by the shopping center. McDonald's is claiming that all of these payments shall abate due to the language in the ground lease that states that 1/2 of all payments required to be made to tenant under the lease shall abate. As the rent is set to escalate every 5 years in accordance with the lease, and real estate taxes will surely continue to rise, my client stands to lose well over $738,000 in rent alone. If you add real estate taxes and CAM, as McDonald's is claiming, it would be well over $1 million that my client stands to lose should this development be approved. McDonald's will certainly continue to renew its lease out through 2035 if it is paying 1/2 of its rent. My clients purchased this property as an investment property. They are not a multi-million-dollar international corporation like McDonald's, yet they will be left with extremely harsh and unjust penalties should this Oberweis project be approved by the City of Geneva. In addition to the above, we have hired a civil engineer to review the plans that were submitted by Oberweis. He is Eric Mankey with ESM Civil Solutions, and he's here tonight with me. We found the following issues with the proposed plans submitted by Oberweis, which we would like to raise. Some of you have already brought these up. As noted in the special use findings of fact, the parking is not adequate for it to be self-contained on the outlot, and therefore it requires a shared parking agreement with At Home. As you mentioned, this arrangement is problematic, as the only way in which anyone parking in the shared spaces to the north will have access to this site is to walk through the drive-through lane, causing a potential traffic problem. This does not seem like a safe way for pedestrian ingress or egress in order to reach the restaurant. Another issue with the parking is the drive-through area spaces, the holding spaces, are also being utilized for trash pickup, making a potentially dangerous situation there with the trash in and out and cars coming in and out of that same area. Furthermore, it appears that the entrance into this outlet from Fabyan Parkway is being moved perhaps dangerously close to the entrance to the shopping center from Fabyan Parkway. Right now, the proposed curb cuts for this site, or the cuts that exist, are further to the north, so they line up with the lines of the parking to continue straight. This could lead to traffic flow problems in the shopping center due to offset intersections and to an increase in accidents, especially where traffic is being permitted to turn left out of the Oberweis development at the entrance by Fabyan Parkway. We also note a location along the drive-through lane where only 2 feet has been provided to separate the drive-through traffic from oncoming northbound vehicles along the commercial drive. With these in mind, it is in our opinion that the site plan is too large for the outlot parcel. Eric is here should you want to ask any questions about these concerns we've listed. Please be advised that if this plan is approved, this will likely result in litigation between the various parties. There was recently an amendment to the shopping center declaration that is in dispute as well. This planned unit development was put in place to protect all of the parties in the Fabyan Crossing Shopping Center. As you are aware, the list of the permitted uses for the PUD currently only permits restaurant uses if they are an incidental use within an anchor store or if they are located on Lot 4, which is my client's property, the McDonald's parcel. To agree to amend this PUD would result in irreparable harm to my client and will, without question, diminish the value of my client's property. Therefore, I urge you to vote no to the proposed amendment to the Fabyan Crossing planned unit development, which would permit the construction of the Oberweis restaurant in this shopping center. I am happy to hereby submit to you these documents if you want to see them regarding the ground lease. I have also the letter from the attorney for McDonald's and kind of my rough calculations as to how I got to my numbers with the,
Certainly, if you want to submit them as exhibits, that's fine.
and I'm happy to take any questions. I know it's a complex situation.
Yes.
I have a
John.
couple questions. So, is the owner of this parcel subject to the,
The shopping
to the
center.
restrictions, the use restrictions in the McDonald's lease, the ground lease? There's two separate owners and parties, correct?
Yes, it's the whole shopping center.
Okay, so this was made with, this is part of the PUD declaration? Or documents, whatever the appropriate term would be?
Ground lease has a provision that says that if there is any other user in this shopping center,
Right, but the ground lease has two parties. The folks you represent as
And-
owners of Lot 4 and McDonald's.
correct.
How is the owner of this party part of that? How do
They
we,
aren't a part of that, but our lease with the McDonald's says that if anyone else in the shopping center is a restaurant user, that McDonald's rent gets to go abate because of that. And the PUD was put in place in part to help protect
So
our
are-
client that no other restaurant users would be going
are
into the
are
shopping center.
all owners within the PUD property subject to the same conditions? I mean, how do we, because you're requiring a third-party owner that's not party to the ground lease to be subject to the conditions that the owner of Lot 4 agreed to with McDonald's.
Well, we're not requiring them. We're just saying that by not abiding by what's in our ground lease, it's going to cause our client to suffer irreparable financial hardship.
Which, as I heard, would be approximately $1 million over 16 years.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a provision in the ground lease whereby McDonald's paying reduced rent would also be obligated, though, to pay a percentage rent based on sales?
No.
There's not a sales adjustment.
There's not.
Okay.
Yes.
Go
I
ahead,
think
ma'am.
this is, well, it's for staff and for you. So it seems to me that your argument perhaps is that really goes to the diminished property value, which is one of the conditions of the special use, that there should be no diminishment of the surrounding properties. So that's really your argument. It's not really with these folks. It's really that that condition of the special uses
Right.
is being violated, correct?
Yes, that's definitely what she's alleging is
Right,
here.
right, okay. So as John is saying, these folks don't really have to care about this. You know, this is your problem and your client, you know, these other two parties' problems. So my question to staff then is, what obligation are we under to ensure that all those conditions of special use are met? Can you approve a special use that violates one of those conditions or not?
Yeah, it's the preponderance of those.
All right.
And one of the things that we have in these uses is the fact that they're, you know, we have to look at it all, the the whole 9 standards. And as far as for this one, this is a private agreement, as we
Right,
pointed out.
right.
And so the city, this really is acting like an exclusive, that the only restaurant.
Right.
What the client, what the applicant is doing is they're using the process that's in place in the PUD to amend the standards, which has been done. We just did it for Spenga. There was a special use, they changed it. I don't know, some people may have been around in 2006 when a Longhorn Steakhouse was approved on the site. So a restaurant has been approved, a use of a restaurant is approved for this site right now. And there wasn't any objection at that point in time. That was approved by the city council, okay?
Right, that was my question. I was like, well, where was she with the Longhorn Steakhouse? Where were you?
McDonald's was there.
I wasn't retained by them back then, so I'm sorry, I don't know the history.
Because McDonald's was there and you were not here. And Longhorn Steakhouse is a restaurant.
Yeah, I don't know.
But that didn't go forward. But what did remain was the
But it was
special use for a
approved.
restaurant.
I think what may have happened back then is this is conjecture, I'm not sure, but the declaration may have governed, there may have been issues there between the shopping center owner and the restaurant user, that they would have to amend that, and they maybe did not get their approvals that they needed to do that.
But then you're telling us what we can and can't approve.
I'm telling you that the PUD says right now that a restaurant user, shouldn't be going in there, and that's a financial hardship on my client if it does.
Brad?
What evidence is there that it's going to diminish the value of your client's property? What actual evidence?
Well, I just handed the copy of the lease that shows the penalty that's in the lease and the amount of rent that is payable into evidence. So that amount will not be realized by my client if this does go forward.
So it reduces just because of that private agreement, it reduces
Correct.
the property.
That's correct. So, for instance, if we were going to sell the property right now to a third party, let's say a year ago before Oberweis brought this forward, we would have realized a lot more money that now that this is a potential, use and issue, and it wouldn't sell for nearly what it would have before than this risking of the 50% rent payment.
Seems to me that's not really the city's
Yes.
concern,
That's
whether or
correct.
not your client loses money on this deal. That's really is a private matter. The question for us is whether or not we should approve this because it's in the best interests of the city
Correct.
to have this proposal go forward or not.
Well, I have a question. Does the current PUD restrict restaurants? The PUD?
Well, they have to amend it. It wasn't specifically called out
drive-through.
for a restaurant. It was, as she indicated, on Lot 4, they had, I take that back. Lot 1, which this is, and Lot 4 are both approved for restaurants and cocktail lounges.
Per the PUD?
Per the PUD,
Per the
currently.
original PUD?
No, not the original, but
For
since
the existing.
2006.
Since the amended?
So again, the focus of the permitted, the criteria of the special use is on a drive-through only. They have the right to do a restaurant on this site,
Right.
and that was approved before.
If there was
It's
no
the
drive-through for
They
this
wouldn't even
restaurant,
be
we
here.
would not have, subject to the parking
Correct.
conditions. But if they met all
If they
the,
would've
all the
met the-
conditions of the PUD, we would not be having a meeting tonight with this as an agenda item.
Correct.
Correct.
And even actually, the original PUD said restaurant, it didn't say drive-through restaurant that McDonald's is working under. It doesn't say drive-through, it just says restaurant. So I mean, that it wasn't clear, in that too, and
But
they've
the
gone
city's
through.
interpretation of this is that because the drive-through is included, we need to adopt special, we need to adopt finding of fact. It is in fact a substantial change to the PUD.
We look at it,
Even
as
the
we've told Oberweis, that we look at it as a restaurant, but having a drive-through is a special
It's
use.
a special case for a restaurant. Yes.
Next, a question of the Oberweis folks. How important is the drive-through to you folks? I mean, you could get this approved, you wouldn't even,
even be here.
Wouldn't even be here if you dropped the drive-through.
James Waylock. It's an important part of our business, especially for the ice cream side, which is what it's for. We do a lot of fountain sales, and that's where a lot of the drive-through comes from.
All right, thank you. Mike, did you have a follow-up on
I do, just for my own clarification. So essentially, are we saying the landowner of Lot 1 promised the tenant, McDonald's, that there would be no competition on land they don't own?
That's correct. It was the predecessor to my client that promised that in the lease.
Lot 4.
Lot 4.
Correct.
Lot 4, sorry.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Lot 1 is the one that's being
Lot 1 is
developed.
the
Lot
subject
4 is
matter.
my client's
Yes,
lot.
correct. Lot 4 is what's owned. The promise was there'd be no competition, something close, in Lot 1, even though they don't own that lot. Okay, that's my own clarification. Thank you.
through private agreement?
Right.
So he's
You
not
can
party.
enforce that.
Anything else I can answer?
So this is we had another one, right? So we had another issue with a tenant coming in that had, issues with, the Burlington, where because of the
there was all kinds of trouble there.
agreements of this shopping center are just so cumbersome and difficult that the tenants are winding up always coming
And-
before us complaining about enforcement of private agreements.
Private parties are having to work them out among themselves without
And
city
that's what it
involvement.
sounds like, yeah.
Right,
I mean, the forum is not that. We're not here to enforce, there's a court of law to do that.
right, exactly.
So Paul, is it the city, the staff's opinion that sort of don't need to, we as commissioners don't need to take this into account?
There's no liability.
Correct, other than her
The city needs to,
statement that, yes, that she'll have some impact, we have to look at the genesis of that impact, whether that agreement is an agreement of private parties, not the PUD. If this was something with the PUD, that would hold more water. But yes, the city is comfortable going forward if that's what the council wants to do, or the plan commission tonight. And if they have to result in a lawsuit between the parties, that's privately out of the hands, which is no different than when Longhorn was in here before, the same thing. It was approved and they had discussion. We went through the same thing with Crown Group. They also had to have a meeting and delayed months as they talked about it privately. But here, we're just conducting according to the procedures of the city.
They loved it. The kids just loved it.
Any other questions for this witness? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there another person who wishes to speak on this matter?
Yes.
Okay.
Evening, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Stacking. My name is Peter Storm. I'm from the law offices of Cooper, Storm, and Piscopo. I'm here representing Dial Geneva Realty LLC and Geneva 2, which is their successor. My client owns the detention area, which is Lot 5, which is the most significant frontage along Randall Road of this PUD. Let's clear up a couple of things because there seems to be some confusion about the restrictions. There is a reciprocal easement agreement, which council was referring to, that has nothing to do with the ground lease. That reciprocal easement agreement prohibits this development. It is a private covenant, and I understand, I've been through this. I get the proposition that the Plan Commission obviously doesn't have any jurisdiction and isn't being called to decide the dispute with that. But I'm here to tell you that if you approve this or recommend this, and if the City Council approves it, there is going to be litigation with respect to the easement agreement, the reciprocal easement agreement, that contains the covenants that prohibit this. They were intended to prohibit a drive-through restaurant, but so was the PUD. When this PUD was developed and my clients were involved in the development, the restrictions that we've been talking about with respect to the uses prohibiting a drive-through restaurant were put in place as a zoning protection against that type of development. And the access road that we've been talking about, if you go back in the minutes and you look at the development and the
history of how the Keim parcels developed from Fabyan Parkway to the north to Fargo, that access road was really intended to be a frontage road through each one of those developments so that customers did not need to go back out onto Randall Road. And one of the significant parts of that was to prohibit drive-through outlot development of any kind, and especially in this area. To prohibit the stacking or drive-through lane traffic things that we've been talking about. That was the purpose of putting those restrictions in place. So what you are being asked to do is, without any evidence that that particular purpose has changed, to modify it. And I submit to you, you can't, and there is no evidence that that has changed. The fact that Venture went out of business, that Dominic's didn't make it in that particular anchor store, has never altered the fact that this frontage road and the prohibitions against the drive-through were there. The other thing that happened, McDonald's parcel is not part of the reciprocal easement agreement. Lot 4 is outside of that. That's why there's a ground lease. But the owners of the other parcels have the obligations to defend the covenant. My client has that obligation and is going to defend that covenant with respect to its interests that it continues to own. But that's why there seemed to be a disconnect in terms of McDonald's and the ground lease and their issue with respect to the reciprocal easement agreement.
This agreement, I'm sorry, excuse me a second. This agreement is a private agreement between the owners. Nobody has ever amended the PUD to say you can't subdivide a lot or that a drive-through is not, is a prohibited use within the center, right? I mean, the applicant is within their rights to bring this forward as under the PUD.
To request an amendment to the PUD.
Correct.
But what I'm telling you is the PUD restrictions were put in place simultaneously as part of a long process of negotiations to prohibit a drive-through restaurant and to prohibit one that would ultimately be a competitive business to McDonald's.
And those are private agreements.
The reciprocal easement agreement is a private agreement. Yes, that's correct.
And the agreements you're talking about, there are several different parties to this that could or could not approve this.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So you're one party of 3 or 4 parties.
Well, our position is that it requires all parties in order to amend that. There is a dispute. I will give you that there is a dispute about that. That's going to be a hotly litigated issue about that particular agreement. And again, I fully understand that the Plan Commission, I'm not asking the Plan Commission to enforce that agreement, but I'm telling you that it is part and parcel of the underlying justification for the restrictions that were put in place on the zoning side, the PUD. That they are the same. And so we now, without a change in circumstance that relates to the reasons for those zoning restrictions, we are considering a change simply because it might be useful and profitable for Oberweis to develop that parcel. But that's not what the underlying zoning was. And now, just quickly to the other point, we think that they also don't satisfy some of the other criteria if you look at this from a special use amendment standpoint, which is, among other things, the increase in traffic. This is precisely the evil that my client in the development, I think, was trying to prevent, the issue of having additional traffic from an outlot that is potentially going in and out of the access to Fabyan Parkway. One of the prime considerations was moving that entrance up the grade far west to provide for that. And so, we think that this outlot development proposal is going to impact that. That's one of the reasons why there was a prohibition against drive-through uses along that frontage road, along that access road. So we think that they don't satisfy the third element because it is going to increase traffic, and it's going to do it in a way that is contrary to the existing zoning requirements. And while I realize that there is a stormwater management letter, and I didn't really hear anything addressed in terms of how this is going to impact the actual detention area, which is what my client owns.
He was saying it was less impervious surface.
Well, he's saying it's less impervious surface, but that doesn't answer whether or not this particular development, I mean, I get that the reduction of impervious surface has to do with the triggers for stormwater management. That doesn't mean that water isn't going to divert into that detention pond that isn't going there right now. And there isn't any, and my client is concerned about that. So we actually think that because of the, and again, this is, something that's to the discretion of the city, but given the fact that there has been some indication that the use issues are going to get litigated, it seems to me to make sense that play out in the courts before the city takes the steps to approve a project that we respectfully submit is never going to see, is not going to go forward because of the positions with respect to the covenants.
Is it your contention that the city cannot take action on this issue because of a private agreement?
No.
That's all we need to know. Thank you.
It absolutely can.
Thank you.
I'm just saying it's not wise. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any other questions anybody has.
You have a question, ma'am?
Yeah. So if we approve this and the council goes on to approve it, and in litigation, this project collapses and is never built, then we will leave in place a PUD that allows a drive-through at this location on this lot. Is that true?
That could happen, but also if there's legal, they may have a consent decree that abridges that too. Depending on the lawsuit, right? If they get into litigation, the result of that litigation may have some effect on the approval. That's happened before, that things approved in a consent decree through litigation, and the ordinance or whatever has to change.
Right, but we'll let a court decide that. I'm not a court. I believe I'm not a court.
Sir, you mentioned that drive-through restaurants were prohibited, or was it they were specifically prohibited, or was it just that restaurants were allowed, but drive-throughs were not mentioned? So by default, you're saying they were prohibited?
Are you talking about the zoning?
The
zoning classification permits restaurants, but not drive-throughs.
Okay.
The reciprocal
It
easement
specifically says
agreement
that.
prohibits a drive-through restaurant.
And the owner of Lot 1 is party to the REA?
Yes. And lots 2 and 3 as well.
Right.
But not 4.
And you are Lot 3?
5.
5.
And we are the predecessor entitled to Bear Valley.
Are you guys party to it as well, Lot 5 then?
To Lot 5? Yes.
Okay. You're party to the REOC?
Yes.
REA.
So my client has standing to enforce that agreement and intends to do that.
But the only thing that you brought up that I think falls within our discussion tonight is that you think there could be some potential additional flow into your owner's parcel, which is the retention area, versus that's really the only legitimate
On
thing.
the third,
Areas that
on
we
the,
consider.
on number
Right,
7,
right.
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a question for the civil engineers. Where does the water today go from this site, and where will there be a change in what goes to Lot 5's retention area?
My understanding is there are drains, and they do go to, ultimately to, some of those drain into the detention area, and obviously that
All right.
dissipates
Sir,
eventually.
we have a civil engineer
Sure.
here that, thank you. Well, if we have any additional questions, we'll definitely come to you.
Your cards.
But We'll hear from, that was a question directed to the client's or the applicant's civil engineer, so.
I don't think he was ready for this question.
Todd Richards, HR Green. Let's go to the grading plan. Nope. All right. So in the existing condition, Fabyan Parkway from the west, you can see that it slopes down into the site and then continues to flow down in through along this access drive. Now, along the outside edges, we have a sidewalk along the right-of-way, and that appears to be roughly a ridge line. You can kind of see this contour here, so that some of the water may be sliding off this way. And then also, basically from along the back of curb, it is also going off along the parkway, over the sidewalk, and then down to Fabyan, which then continues along over here to this series of catch basins. The majority of the site, though, does drain west to east. It is bounded by a curb and gutter. The concrete cutouts on that east side accept the majority of this water. There is a catch basin here, which does accept stormwater from, you can see that this is your ridge line here between the 720 contours. So water from about here drains west, water from around here drains to the east.
You're not changing that?
We are changing that a little bit, just because with the proposed development, it's almost impossible to keep that exact drainage area. However, we're not diverting additional water into the overall stormwater management facility for the subdivision. There is a little bit less stormwater that will hit this catch basin here, and then as you can see, it gets stormwater gets collected here, goes to the north, and continues on to the north to that detention basin. There's also an existing storm sewer out here along the access drive that picks up stormwater in the existing condition. So, and again,
So you're remaining true, though, to, for the most part, in the existing profile of the site, where most of the water will go to the east and
Correct.
and out to the swale and
Correct.
into Lot 5?
Correct.
Retention area?
That is correct. Yeah.
Right.
Again, we can't hit the exact drainage boundaries in the proposed condition, but it is
Right.
in general.
But I'm having a hard time thinking there'll be much of an increase, if any increase, than what goes into Lot 5.
Again, we're not changing, we're not increasing the impervious area, we're actually reducing the impervious area within the site. The curb line along here, that we are increasing this, there's a little bit of a cutout here.
Right.
We're not changing this curb line location on the east side. This south curb line remains where it does right now as well.
Okay. Any other questions on stormwater?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Going to continue to take public comments, or any other clarity that we need to hear at this
I
point?
think we keep going.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak on this matter? Anyone else? I have a couple other people on the list, but I'm not going to call them unless they're all probably the applicant. Okay. All right. We don't have any additional public comment.
So I do have one more question. The applicant does understand that if the signage as recommended or requested is allowed, that's going to prohibit any pylon or monument signs going forward, right? Do we want to close it?
Mr. Chairman, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Celeste, please call the roll.
Case?
Aye.
Jadish?
Aye.
Evans? Aye. Kasserag?
Aye.
Leidig?
Aye.
Mead?
Aye.
Slivka?
Aye.
Stocking?
Aye.
Passes.
All right.
So we have, so for discussion among us, we've got five things to consider, right? We've got the change to the PUD to allow a sit-down drive-through. And separately, we've got facade signage as requested. And then we've got the landscape plan, and we've got the parking requirements, which will roll into the final PUD site amended approval.
Real amendment, yep.
Right. From my perspective, I don't have a problem with the signage request in that there are three uses. It's one building, it's kind of like a food court per se, but you need to advertise for those various components of it. The landscape plan, I think they've demonstrated an interest in maintaining the integrity of the 2017 revised landscaping with smaller shrubs and ornamental trees and that type of thing. And the parking, with the 66 on site and the borrowed 34, I think works for me. I think those are the right numbers, but I don't know what others feel, but.
I guess, I mean, overall, I agree with John that things seem okay, but I feel like the flow, the stacking, I have some concerns about that. I don't know if that means I would vote down, but I don't know if the applicant is open to addressing those at all or not, or if we feel like they need to be.
What kind of things are are there issues that can be answered or adjusted, or what's your concerns?
I'm picturing 20 cars stacked in there, going further than the 10 that they're planning for, affecting the parking that was on that side, the east side of the parking lot,
Yeah, because
being
they'd
messy.
be queuing in there, so, yeah.
Just the flow doesn't feel right. And then also exiting and turning left, kind of going maybe on John's suggestion for right turn only there. Our car is going to be coming in kind of hot off of Fabyan into the parking lot, and there's a car there turning left to go west. We agree there, not going to be maybe a huge demand for that, but that seems a little scary. I'm not saying these are overwhelming issues, but
Yeah.
I think we got off.
I
There's
think
potential
Still a lot of
traffic
illegal.
conflict there.
Yeah, I think we talked about, that intersection is gonna be, there's gonna be some activity in there, and there's gonna be a lot of turning movements.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I brought up. But, maybe a right turn only modification, so that they just don't have the option to make the left. I mean, I think,
Physically, could they do that? I mean, without a curb cut? I mean, because to Cindy's point, if you have a right turn only sign and someone wants to go left, they're gonna do that
yeah,
unless the
well, you
curb
always have
guides them.
that kind of thing. You might be able to put something in there to restrict it somewhat, but yeah, it's not gonna totally prohibit it. He's gonna,
Especially for turning movements, so we'd have to look at that again too. Any emergency
oh,
vehicles, when
forget
when
a
you
fire
begin
truck
to
through
do
there,
that.
Right,
yeah, because
right.
it is pretty tight.
Right,
It is pretty
right.
tight.
Agreed.
It's not a
Agreed.
lot of area.
When didn't the city engineer review this sort of thing, and they did not have a problem with it?
Well, it's not optimal in the sense of, as they pointed out, how close it is to the Fabyan Parkway, but being a right in and right out, and/or the traffic coming into the site as a whole, I mean, we don't know exactly what degree that's going to be affected, but that's why they have a stop bar and other places too, that, I mean, you look at, you try to do the best, but we don't think it's closer than we think that, comfortably, but it's still at the same end, it could work.
What's a stop bar?
Just, the stop bar is the line on the
Oh,
concrete.
just the painted line.
Yeah, and it says,
I'm envisioning a bar.
Me too.
and it says that the cross traffic does not stop, kind of cue cue the people there.
Right.
You know, with it, so.
It seems to me, kind of in agreement with Brad, seems to me that this particular shopping center has been a problem at every entrance, every intersection. I mean, there's trouble down by the McDonald's, there was often trouble down there. And here we are once again compromising to a situation that, as you said, is not optimal, rather than trying to have truly good design.
They have looked at it. I know that the owners of the shopping center as a whole, and there was some alluded to, is the fact that when Walmart come in and this whole thing turned to a right in and right out, that really affected this, as opposed to having, in the design of these buildings, as opposed to having the full entrance across into the center. Instead, I think it enters in the back, you know. So they've always kind of wanted to straighten that out and have access, but it's, you know, that kind of chapter's already been written when the KDOT approved Walmart and give us a full entrance for Walmart
yes,
and
I
restricted.
remember, yeah.
So they're kind of working against that to begin with. Now, the only thing positive is I think the right in and right out is somewhat limited. I mean, people are, you know, it's going to cut down on people wanting to go that way because they can't go left and they can't go north. And
They can only continue west.
Right.
I think that it's a partial mitigant that I think will help. I also think that it won't be too long before all you see in that drive-through line is ice cream users, and I think that will be, so I'm not as worried about 20 cars. Will there ever be a time? Sure, but I think for the most part, pizza and burger customers will be parking and walking in.
But if you go to any of our drive-throughs in town, at, you know, McDonald's or potentially Dunkin'
Even
Donuts and
Panera.
things like that, there's not 20 cars generally
Yeah.
in line with that. I mean, our standard is about 6 or 7
Yeah.
cars, and we talked about maybe 8 we had with Dunkin' Donuts or something like that. So having 10 is really above what we normally see. Now, if it's a longer wait, and they indicated tonight that they weren't going to be necessarily waiting on burgers, or the pizza, that was going to be in another wait line. But if it's going to be primarily you go there and order for ice cream, then, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, you're
what-
gonna have very
Right.
quick turnarounds.
Yeah, and what's the
And
the
we
peak
refer
on
to
ice-
Portillo's a lot. Portillo's, I think, is an aberration
It's
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
everywhere.
across the board.
yeah.
It just,
But they're sending people out into the drive-through lane to take
Right.
their orders.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
Yeah, just, you know, as it relates to the drive-through, while, you know, it may not be optimal, I think there's some good things about it. One is at least that if the drive-through does back up, it backs up within the site. It's not off of the site out onto a public road or a through road. And it does have the opportunity for cars to get out. Even though it's not maybe designed exactly that way, it
good point.
it functions that way, it can function that way. So the car that's in line by mistake or that decides to leave can get out. So I'm okay with the design.
Anything else?
okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make, well, a point of fact, or clarification from Paul. Do we need to decide if we are 4 points 2, 3, and 4 before, or do I incorporate those into a second motion?
You can take it whichever way, but I think the way that Scott was reading it on the agenda is the first, if you're in agreement with the.
Yeah, and I guess if I state the motion that way and someone's not in agreement, it'll,
Yeah, you know, as indicated on here, are amendments to the PUD versus the site plan approval. That's kind of the way that we've kind
Right.
of broken
My
that down.
logic is
If-
you have to have the PUD amended
Right.
before you can do the site plan, because it wouldn't be permitted.
to amend, right, okay. Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to amend the Fabyan Crossing Plan Unit Development Permitted Uses for the Commercial Tract, originally adopted by Ordinance 1993-45, Exhibit 9, to allow a sit-down and drive-through restaurant on Lot 1 as a permitted use, subject to the findings of fact and the staff analysis in the staff report.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Celeste, please call the roll.
Case?
Aye.
Jadish?
Aye.
Evans?
Aye.
Kasserag?
Aye.
Leidig?
Aye.
Mead?
Aye.
Slivka?
Aye.
Stocking?
Aye.
That passes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for a final planned unit development site plan approval for an outlot on Lot 1, incorporating items 2, 3, and 4 on page 2 of the staff report to amend the facade sign standards originally adopted by ordinance 1993-45, Exhibit 10, and subsequently amended by ordinances 1996-22, 1996-34, 2017-10, and 2018-16 to allow facade signs for the Lot 1 outlot, and to amend the final landscape plan adopted by ordinance 1993-45, Exhibit 7, and subsequently amended by ordinance 2017-10, and to amend the final site plan and parking requirements adopted in ordinance 1993-45, Exhibit 6, and subsequently amended under ordinance 2003-20 and resolution 2018-01 for Lot 1, and further conditioned upon the staff's recommendation that a final engineering site approval shall be required prior to building permit issuance by the city. Number 2, recordation of a final plat of subdivision and plat of public utility easement for the required prior to building permit issuance. And 3, the approval of any additional facade signs are in lieu of having a freestanding sign for the Lot 1 outlot, and all subject to the conditions and findings of fact in the staff report.
Second.
That's a world's record.
That was,
Yeah,
That was a long one.
that is a world
need
record.
water.
And John, just for clarification, that was 2 through 4?
Those items I read were items 2 through 4, incorporating those into the,
Okay.
into the motion for number 5. That was the intent.
Celeste.
Case?
Aye.
Jadish?
Aye.
Evans?
Aye.
Kasserag?
Aye.
Leidig?
Aye.
Mead?
Aye.
Slivka?
Aye.
Stocking?
Aye.
Passes.
Let's go on. Another one?
John, one
Oh, we do?
for the final, did you?
I did number 5,
Oh,
incorporating.
you did? Okay.
2, 3, and 4.
Sorry, I was wondering, I
into-
said 2 through 4. but okay.
I incorporated 2, 3, and 4 into the motion for 5, and your conditions plus the findings of fact in the report.
Yeah. Didn't you hear him?
I'm sorry. All right.
I did.
Thank you.
So it going to council?
May 20th is.
May 20th
If we're
is-
able to make that, yes.
John
Yeah.
did a good job.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, so the next public hearing item we have on our agenda is the at-home sign variation. It's a sign variation pursuant to section 11-14-5A of the Geneva zoning ordinance to permit a 76-square-foot wall sign to be displayed on a secondary building facade, the north facade. Location is also 2100 South Randall Road, and the applicant is J&S Electric and Sign. Yes, apparently no one's here to talk
I
about
know
it.
there's a lady, I think. But,
Are you here for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was
Hang on.
gonna, okay.
Read the record, please. Yeah, well, gotta read the record.
The contents of the Plan Commission file is the project narrative in response to special use standards prepared by the applicant. To the variation standards, I'm sorry. Variation standards by the applicant submitted April 16, 2019. Sign plan submitted by the applicant, J&S Electric and Sign dated February 18, 2019. A memorandum and staff report from the Community Development Department to the Plan Commission, which summarizes the request and provides staff's analysis dated May 9th. A certificate of publication from the Daily Herald for the legal notice that was published on April 22nd for tonight's public hearing, and a copy of the notification letter and sworn affidavit stating that the said notification letter was mailed to all property owners within 500 feet of the subject property.
All right, thank you very
I'll help
much.
her find the
Yes.
Yeah, where are all the attorneys?
told you, you should have let me go first. I could have been home and in bed by now.
They put their application in October. So, let's see.
Approved, is this?
All right, I don't know if you want to sign, I don't know where, this is our staff report, so we just want to talk.
Okay, we'll hear from the applicant.
They just want another sign on another side of the
You
building.
need to identify yourself and address, please.
Tommy Minner, J&S Electric, 101 East Illinois Avenue in Aurora.
Okay? Your presentation is, they just need a sign.
They would like an additional sign. What they are requesting is significantly less in size than what they would be entitled to if this was considered a main frontage.
Did you want to talk about the hardship at all, or did you want to make any points about why they should have a sign?
Kind of all spelled out in your handout that you already had. I assumed you all read it.
We did, but it would be nice to hear your rationale for it.
Traffic going through the shopping center going south can't see them, so they would like exposure so that everybody on the south, are my directions right? The north end going south would be able to see them.
I feel that they're not visible now from the signage that's out. There's 2 or 3 pylon signs along Randall and along Fabyan that identify at home, I believe, right?
Yes, there is signage out there that lets you know that At Home is in the shopping center, but this sign would let you know where they are once you get into the northern end of the shopping center. Because you can't see their sign as you're going through the main drive along in front of the buildings, you can't tell where they are. Because the building juts out, like everybody else, they're all in the same frontage, but their section juts out. So you can't see down it, like Best Buy, as you're north of Best Buy, you can see that.
Well, that's because they're blue.
But if you didn't jut out, you wouldn't be here. I'm not saying I'm not
I'm
in favor
misunderstanding
of
your
this.
question.
You have a spot for a sign, but if you were the same linear front line as the rest of the shopping center, this would not even be an opportunity for you.
Correct.
And the signage that's along both Fabyan and Randall would have to be enough for you, just like it is for Best Buy and for all the other tenants, right?
Yes, but because it's not on the same plane,
Right?
they're blocked. As you're going through the shopping center, you can see everybody that's facing east.
Can you? Let's see.
As you're driving south through the shopping center, you can see their signage.
I can't.
Not the other,
No, I can't tell.
if you're in the lane of traffic immediately in front of the stores, I don't think you could see anybody unless you're
No.
proximate to their storefront.
If you're on the rig road, you can see.
Right.
The access road, you can see all the stores.
See everybody.
That's the one that's farther out by
Right.
Randall, correct? No, I'm talking about the one like here in this photo,
Right.
Yeah.
where you're driving right in front of the
And they,
stores.
Center made a very big point of taking out all that landscaping so that they were visible to the street,
Right.
which I didn't particularly want,
Yeah, I didn't want that either.
but I got voted down on that one.
Yeah, so did I. I was really angry about that.
Is there, go ahead, John.
If we approved this, does this run with the land as far as, does the next tenant that
Yes, they
comes
would
into
have-
this space,
Yes,
they'll have the ability to put a sign there?
yeah.
Will it be limited in size to the size that we approve here tonight if we did that, if we approved it?
Yes, I mean, it's not, they're here for a variation, and the variation would be specific to
Right.
what's approved.
Right.
Correct.
As in the 76 square feet, and then the 76 square feet would stay with the PUD, and any future tenant couldn't exceed the 76 square feet. Asking.
Right, exactly. Actually,
Scott or Paul, question. The 76 square feet, is that like, I guess, a percentage of the square footage of the side of that building? Because it looked like the variance originally is 0, right? I mean,
Well-
we're going from nothing allowed to 76.
Correct. What's allowed by the code is 0.
Correct.
So she's in, the applicant is in for a variation to be able to put a sign where you're not able to put a sign by code. But in doing so, they're not asking for a 146 square feet sign, which they would normally, if this were a primary sign area, they would do 146, but they're asking for a 76, so less, yes.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead, Nim.
I just wonder if there's any comparable situations in other shopping centers along Randall or elsewhere in the community. Has anybody ever brought up this kind of an issue before? I'm trying to think of one, and I'm not sure I can, of another situation like this.
So you're referring to requesting additional signage above and beyond what's normally allowed by the standard sign ordinance?
No, I'm talking
No.
about your reason for saying that additional signage is justified, that there's a
Jut out.
design area, like another center that is a design like this, where the buildings aren't all in the same line, and there's something that sticks out like this. And
Well, just south of Glen Eagle is kind of the same, right? I mean, I think it's more kind of circular, but I can't remember what that store is, just to the right as you're driving in.
Which one's Glen
That sticks
Eagle?
out, doesn't it? And then it kind of curves back.
Is that the vein clinic you're talking about?
Something
For the
like-
shops at Randall Square? You know how the
Where Nancy's and
Yeah.
Jurin is eventually down that
one
part.
on the south end is, at least was American Vein Clinic, was a larger
That kind
box.
of sticks out like that. I'm just giving an
Yeah.
example. I'm not sure
Right.
that what point it proves.
That's a
is
much
one way.
smaller, I mean,
Definitely much smaller.
what I see here is you do have the presence of this new sign would tend to draw somebody that's down a longer length, that might not get to that end of the center in the normal course of shopping, but they might say, hey, there's an at-home store, let's go check that out, because they wouldn't even be driving by it unless they're going west on Fabyan, right?
But then what's stopping them from putting it on the other side of the store?
They have it on the other side.
But that's that's
They have it on the street sides on
the
both.
street. That's
they're
the code,
entitled
right?
to that.
So, Paul, the way I read this is they are 7 feet shy on the south facing. I mean, they're 7 feet less, square feet less of signage on the Randall side, and there's 3 square feet less on the 3 square feet less on the Randall side and 7 square feet less. So we're negative 10. They're adding 76. They're really asking for 66 extra square feet.
Well, they're all separate, though. In other words, you're allowed
So you're not,
125.
I shouldn't, right, okay.
Right. And they're separate facades.
If another tenant came in here, they could by right put in the 125 and the 300 on the 2 other faces.
Yeah,
right.
provided they have the two square feet for every lineal foot, but yes, they would be able to basically do the 297, because that's what if they took the exact same spot. I guess they could go to 300. Yeah, I think they could go to 300. It's just they limited their sign that way. I think they have.
Right.
And what would happen if this building was ever subdivided? How would that affect the sign?
Then the 300 would be divided up between,
Divided.
right, would be
That would-
divided between.
And that would apply to whatever went on this side of the building too? Or would it only apply to whichever tenant was at that end of the building?
Yes, that's what we've done in others, is that the sign has to face, now they could get 125, but what we talk about for the Oberweis was those signs are only because that tenant is on that side of the building, so you're right.
The other side of the wall that the sign's on has to be that tenant.
Yes,
Right, so if there were 2 tenants then in that building, only one of them could have a sign on this north-facing wall.
correct.
Whoever had that north facing.
Right, whoever was in
So if
that
it breaks into
particular.
4, there's not gonna be
By
bullet
right,
points
without
one
coming
day.
to us.
Right,
Gotcha.
got it.
So, but this question, but that could be another variation request for if it were split.
Right.
The tenant on
Yeah,
the south
right.
could ask
Or
to
faced
add
with another-
a second
That's correct.
sign.
But we would get another shot at it, I mean,
Right.
for a discussion. And
So from my perspective, on this shopping center, I'm done giving stuff away, so I don't see a hardship. I just don't see a hardship here to warrant the variation. They have a primary sign, it's a large sign. They have high visibility
We-
from Randall Road. They have pedestal signs. We got signs all over this center. We don't
this-
need another sign.
This harkens back for me to, was it Ross Dress for Less?
Yes.
Yes.
We had the trees they took down but I don't think we granted them an extra signage on an extra wall, did we?
I just,
No.
And that was,
No.
to gather a lot more traffic flow coming up and down Randall, and we denied that, I
Yeah.
believe.
I mean, it's visible. There's no way you can claim it's not visible.
I don't know how you can get on
Maybe
this,
it's not visible in this part segment of the
Right.
shopping center, but the store and the signage is visible. You
Well-
cannot claim hardship that we're not giving you the ability to have visibility.
I don't know how you can get on this overall parcel and not know that At Home is on the parcel, because there's a sign at every entrance.
It's impossible. It's, unless you're not even paying attention to anything and you just
Right.
try to get to McDonald's or something.
But they're at a hardship.
That's just
Their
my opinion.
lawyer said
I don't
so.
see a hardship. I mean, I think variations for like signages or things where you're dealing with a special case condition where the person is lacking visibility, and you're trying to grant them some additional capability because of their situation. This is not yes, it is a somewhat unusual configuration in the center, but it does not prohibit their visibility.
I tend to agree with you. It's a nice to have, not a need to have.
Go ahead, Scott.
Oh,
Go ahead.
well, whoever wants to go first.
Brad, go
Both
ahead.
you guys
I
are
was
like
just gonna
this.
say, I mean, I guess
Both of you are doing it.
feel like I'm sort of missing something, and maybe it's lack of experience, but don't we want to help them succeed in a way? And so, I mean, certainly more, even if it isn't
Bring you more tax
a
dollars.
huge
Sure.
visibility issue, I agree, and I agree with what everybody said, that, yeah, you know, you got to know it's there, and I don't think it's hidden by any means, but it seems kind of like I feel like I'm missing something. It seems like kind of a smaller request to help their visibility, which is helping their success, which is really what we want, isn't it? It doesn't seem, I mean, if it was obnoxious or it was above the roof or things like that, I think, you know, there would be bigger issues, but it seems within scale to me.
Will this be backlit? Will this be lit at night?
Yes, it'll match the sign on the front and both signs on the existing building.
Michael, did you have?
Yeah, I should have gone first.
Okay.
But I'm kind of in the same place, I think, and while it may not be a hardship, it's an opportunity. And I look at it, you know, it's hard enough for retail these days as it is. So I think the sign, the scale of it, it can work well with the other fascia signs along the frontage. So, you know, I would actually be in favor of supporting it.
Any other comments? Any other questions for the applicant? Okay.
Maybe one more. Why isn't At Home here instead of the sign company, or is that normal?
It's usually the sign company that comes
Okay.
in.
Would think they would be pleading their case for their success and being dependent on it or whatever, their hardship, but anyway.
Okay.
I'd rather they were here. I'd rather be at home, but part of the business.
Mr. Chairman, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Celeste.
Case.
Aye.
Jadish.
Aye.
Evans. Aye. Kasserag.
Aye.
Leidig.
Aye.
Mead.
Aye.
Lifka.
Aye.
Steichen.
Aye.
Passes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to request a sign variation pursuant to section 11-14-5A of the Geneva zoning ordinance to permit a 76-square-foot wall sign to be displayed on the secondary north-facing building facade of the at-home store at Geneva Center 2015, at 2100 South Randall Road, subject to the findings of fact contained in the staff report.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
All right. Case.
Nay.
Jadish.
Aye.
Evans. Aye. Kasserag.
Aye.
Leidig.
Aye.
Mead.
Aye.
Slivka.
Aye.
Stocking.
Nay.
Okay, motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
6-2.
Thank you.
Thanks.
What else we have, Paul?
Real quick, the next meeting that we have is the hopefully exciting conclusion of the downtown
Way to recycle it.
Boy.
and that will be May 23rd, hopefully on your calendars for the, that one, we hope to have some testimony on the ones, if people want to come forward and talk about the ones that was recommendation of changing last time, so we noticed them, so we'll have that. And then any other questions you have or clarifications, and then I think staff would be looking to close the public hearing and determine if you guys are ready to make a motion based on the consensus that you've had. So that's what we're looking for at that meeting. At this point in time, I don't have anything for June 13th, but it's a little early. Hamilton Place is still out there. We're still having them work through some things, so, and then mark on your calendars, I don't know if David said this the last time, Mill Race Charrette is June 24th through June 27th. That's the week that
It's a
we're gonna
Monday
have,
through.
you know, a number of the, you know, people in. Actually, they're gonna be interviewing people. They're gonna have, generally the meetings at night to talk about the design, talk about the uses, things like that.
That's a public forum?
Yes, all 4 nights. And no, actually, it's gonna be at, Riverside.
Say banquets.
Yeah, so, and that's all I had. Greenhouse Point, passed on Monday.
Saw that.
It's all fenced off.
They
Is
fenced
it
up
already?
This morning.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
it's all
Cool.
fenced off, and looks like they're doing some fire drills in the buildings. Doing some
Oh,
fire.
Oh,
I
yeah,
noticed
they,
there was-
they asked about
That's
that.
good.
Yes.
Demolishing.
Which is good use.
Yeah,
where you're
absolutely.
building it anyway, you might as well let the fire guys take a.
Right, right.
Off-topic question on that. What would it take to get our hands on some of that old brick on the
Oh,
smokestack? I'm gonna be redoing a basement bar here. Kind of a cool
Talk to
little
him, talk to the owner.
wow.
That's a good
You
idea.
have an inside track on that.
Get your pickup and go talk to the owner.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing
Show
what a
up with
case of
your-
beer and a pickup truck.
Show
would
up
do.
It's like,
I mean,
Well, you know the person, Frank Nitty, that was here
Oh,
for the
yeah.
meeting. Yeah, if you call him, maybe that, you know, I mean, you gotta beat the salvage guy to it, though.
Right, Mike Jadush, I voted yes.
okay,
Move to adjourn.
all right.
Thanks.